Welcome to Live Well, Dream Big. I'm Suzanne Monroe, founder of the International Association of Wellness Professionals, where I've been teaching people how to live a life of wellness, tap into their passion, and go for their dreams for over 15 years. I believe living well and dreaming big starts with ourselves. This podcast will show you how to create a healthy, holistic life, empower your mindset, follow your dreams, and make a big impact. Let's dive in right now. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Live Well, Dream Big. Thank you so much for joining me for another episode. You know, as we approach the 1-year mark of the podcast, I've been reflecting on how many amazing guests we had on the show over the last year. And we heard so many amazing and inspiring stories. And I realized that everyone all has something in common, even though their journeys were unique and their stories were all unique and different. There was a common thread. They've all gone on their own live well, dream big journeys, right? They were all willing to bet on themselves, to really pursue their passions and go for their dreams and transform their lives to really do something meaningful. And so I was reflecting on this and going through some of the past episodes, and I wanted to pull together some of our highlights to really kind of share this Live Well, Dream Big journey with you one more time, because to me, their stories just really stand out. And their stories paint a picture, I think, of what's possible for you, right? When you have the courage to go for your dreams, to take action, and to really pursue your passions. Building a life you love, it's not an easy journey. I think that's one thing that stood out from many of the episodes and the guests that we heard this last year, right? They all had fears, they all had doubts, they all had challenges. And yeah, it can feel scary at times. But even though they didn't know exactly what to do, they went for it anyway, and they trusted the process, and they found their way by taking one step after the other. So you might be on a similar journey right now in your life, or wanting to start a Live Well, Dream Big journey in your own unique way. And I want you to know that you can do it. And I hope today's highlights really bring that message forth for you. And I hope you enjoy this episode and that these stories inspire you to take action in the year ahead for yourself and pursue your own passions, whatever they may be. So without further ado, let's get started. Welcome, Kara, to Live Well, Dream Big.
Thank you. So excited to be here.
I actually just finished reading the book last night, Kara, and I was really immersed since page 1 because your story, it's so interesting. I resonated with parts of it. And there were just also so many powerful lessons that you shared on this road to following your passion, building a business. Can you share and get us started by just telling a little bit more about your own personal journey and how you went from being a corporate executive, a very successful one at that, to really leaving it all behind to step out on this path to become an entrepreneur?
Thank you so much. And thanks for the introduction too. And I think more than anything, what I wanted people to get out of the book and what I've recognized about my entire journey thus far, and it's not over yet, is that it really is a journey of trying and about knowing that I didn't know how it was all going to work out. I wasn't sure exactly where I was going a lot of the time. I clearly had a lot of doubters, and my own personal doubt. But what I realized is that as long as I kept moving forward, that was really the key thing, and something I encourage other people to do. And also finding something that I was really interested in. That was always kind of something that I hoped, I guess, when I went off to find my first job. But some of them along the way, maybe they weren't as fulfilling as I thought. And I kind of woke up and realized that I was on the plane all the time. The United Airlines pilots all knew my name. And I thought, I've got 2 kids at home. I'm pregnant with a third. So I left at that point, left AOL, not really clear what I wanted to do. And that's when I decided to take a couple of years off. And I was ready to go back. And I had, 4 kids under the age of 4 at this point. And I was ready to go back and do something else, but I didn't know what that was. And so I kept looking at tech firms. Everybody considered me to, be a tech executive. I considered myself to be a tech executive. But, truth be told, it really wasn't where my interest was. And I was sort of going along with it. I was one of the youngest vice presidents at AOL, one of the few females at AOL in sort of that higher VP or higher level. And so that's when I really did kind of a soul search to trying to figure out what really wakes me up every single morning. What do I want to do? And I still didn't have an answer. And that's when I thought, I'm going to take this time to get healthy. And I had recognized that I had gained a ton of weight over the course of all of my pregnancies. I was having a very difficult time getting that weight off, but I had also developed terrible adult acne. I could not live every day without taking a nap by 2 o'clock in the afternoon. I didn't really have an excuse in my mind because I wasn't doing the traveling that I had been doing. My body and my system were just totally thrown off. And then one day I looked down at my soda can, my Diet Coke. I'd been drinking Diet Coke since I was a teenager, thinking that I was healthy and doing just fine. And that's when I realized how many ingredients were in my Diet Coke. And I thought, gosh, I'm really, I quit eating certain things because there were too many ingredients, but the drinks, I never really thought about it. And again, I wasn't drinking a whole lot else besides the Diet Coke. And I really wasn't drinking water. And again, growing up in Arizona, I probably should have been drinking a lot more water, but I sort of had convinced myself that there's water in Diet Coke and it's called diet, so it must be better for me. Cold turkey, I stopped drinking Diet Coke. I started drinking water. Found water after a couple of days really boring. So I started slicing up fruit that was in my kitchen and throwing it in the water. And that's what got me to enjoy water. And when I looked for this product in the stores, it was, just after a couple of weeks, because I thought, I don't want to be cutting up fruit every single day. And I mean, not only is it expensive, but it's also just a hassle, right? Like it's a two-step process. I probably won't do it all the time. So maybe I'll go to the store and find this product. And I was shocked that there were some carbonated versions of the product, but they all had a lot of sodium in them. And most of them had sweeteners. And that's when I thought, that's so interesting. I also recognized that some of my challenges around health had been adjusted at this point. So I lost in 2.5 weeks, I lost 24 pounds, which is crazy. And my energy levels shot up. And also my adult acne was gone. And so every day I would wake up and I would think about this. And I became obsessed with this idea that it's really hard to get healthy, especially when you want to get healthy. And that's when I thought, gosh, if people actually just started drinking water like I did, maybe they added some fruit to it, maybe they would realize that they could do it. Maybe they could realize that that was the first step in allowing them to actually get healthy. And that was kind of the moment when I really thought that, gosh, if I could develop a product that could get people to actually drink water and get healthier, that would just be the coolest job in the world, right? Like that would just be something that would really make me happy. And as a mother, I also thought it would be something that I would be known for to my children and know that I was helping in some way. But still, you come up with these ideas. You don't really know how you're going to get there. You have these ideas 1 minute and then you're like, I don't know, maybe I should do something else. And I was talking to a lot of tech firms still at the time. And that's when I really one day just went into my local Whole Foods and said, what does it take to get a product on the shelf? And kind of just started at right there that I thought, gosh, I'll write a business plan. I'll just start this. But every day there were definitely these doubts that kind of creeped up. I didn't have the experience. I sort of was pulled by just a recruiter saying, come talk to this company in the tech field. But again, going back to kind of this always be learning and where I was at when I left AOL, the idea of being able to get up and do something that I had a desire to do that was new, that was hard. I wasn't afraid of hard. I was looking for something where I was going to have impact in some way. So that is really, the beginnings of Hint.
Another part of your story I just want to reflect on here is that it's very similar to the journey that many of our listeners go on, which is something happens in their life with their health. Something's not right. In your case, it was what happened to you after the birth of your first 3 children. And then, they go the traditional route, try to find out what's wrong. And then maybe the advice just doesn't quite resonate. So you decide, okay, I'm going to listen to myself. I'm maybe going to go the natural route, just try something, make some life changes. That's really the living well part of the journey. But then they see the results and it ignites this passion in them. In your case, it was giving up the Diet Coke, as you said, and then deciding, okay, there's got to be something better here, and then you decide to dream big, do something about it. But the idea that this personal wellness transformation can lead to this passion that ultimately can not only change your life, but can go out and change the lives of so many people. I love how your story connects with many of our listeners today, but really you were kind of an accidental entrepreneur in that way. I mean, you didn't set out to solve your health challenge and think that you were going to, create an amazing product as a result of it.
Yeah, not at all. And I think it's interesting because I've talked to so many entrepreneurs over the years and really thought about this as well. There are a few ways to decide that you're going to be an entrepreneur, and maybe you're born with it, but certainly I didn't think, even working for very entrepreneurial people and just looking at going into a startup, that wasn't my goal, thinking I'm going to go work for somebody and then eventually start my own company. But when I saw this problem that was out there, and I saw something that really interested me and had impact, that's when I thought, okay, I've got an idea, a little bit of an idea. I don't have sort of the end result ultimately that is going to help me to know that I can actually do this. But if I just go try and take little steps along the way, everything from writing a mini business plan to getting the product on the shelf, that if nothing else, that will allow me to know that I tried. And so many people asked me early on, isn't that risky? It was almost kind of this canned sort of answer that people thought, here she is, a successful tech executive going to launch a beverage company. I never viewed this, and still don't view this, as a beverage company. For me, it was, the beverage is really the tool to helping people get healthier. And it's often what people need. They need hope, right? They need something that actually is fairly easy for them to recognize that they actually can do something. And that's how I saw launching the company. And again, this whole concept of being able to do something that I wanted to do when I got up was something that I had kind of missed over the years as I grew up in the ladder. It's something that I think, as I mentioned earlier, is really, really important, because so much of what I see and so many C-suite executives today is this unhappiness. And I think a lot of it is just not really doing what they want to be doing.
Here's the thing. You guys are sitting here, you're listening to Kara and you're picturing her, she's got this amazing, successful business. Like, you guys, she started selling the water out of the back of her Jeep. Like, she started that small, right? So, and you're talking about risk. Like, obviously starting a business means taking risks on some level. And I know many of our listeners have heard me talk before about how I feel like I'm a risk averse person, but I've had to push myself to kind of take those risks. It didn't come naturally by any means. But we also talk a lot in this community about looking at our fears. Like you're saying now, risks are not necessarily as risky as you think they are, right? But if we don't look at those fears, they're kind of bubbling beneath the surface, unconsciously driving our decisions. So I think it's interesting what you're saying. People often think entrepreneurs are these fearless risk takers, but in Undaunted, you're talking about your own doubts and fears. You also talk about not looking too far forward into the future. In your book, you say, I'm here to tell you that sometimes if you think too much about the end, you're never going to get past the beginning. I love that quote because, you can have this vision that can feel really big, and that's great, but you also have to focus on the next step in front of you, You had a lot of no's, but you would keep on and then you'd get a yes, like the guy at the first Whole Foods. I love that story. He kind of said a yes on a whim and like it changed the course of events. I just think that this is such an important message for those who are following their passion in life, starting their own business. You want to have that big vision, but you also have to really just keep looking at what's right in front of you.
Definitely. And also surrounding yourselves too with people that are really motivating you, right? I think that's so key. And while family members can be really great, I think that they also tend to want you to be safe, right? And so doing something like starting a business in an industry that you don't really know about and that seems kind of hard and kind of crazy when you could go do something else, even though you're not interested in it. I think that those conversations, I certainly had them with my great family, my immediate family, as well as my, siblings. And I think for me, it was just, it was, recognizing that this was like a course that I was choosing and that I had a few, kind of trusted people around me that helped me to think about things, but also recognize that this was something that I was intentional about. Again, having somebody that can kind of tell you to keep going, to keep looking, and you're going to have to look under a lot of rocks. You're going to have people that are not necessarily going to understand what you're saying, but you've got to find those believers who recognize that it's okay for you to take this time to go and learn and try and believe, right? That you might have something that is valuable to someone else to participate in or buy or whatever the business is.
I love that. You've got to look under a lot of rocks to find the believers. And another quotable here, Kara, because it's so inspiring to hear, because I think for so many people out there, you get on this path and there's doubts and doubters as you talk about, and just keep looking for the next yes. It's so inspiring. Is there any final words of wisdom that you want people to know to take away with them today? Anything we missed that I didn't ask you?
Yeah, just that being undaunted, as scary as it sounds, it's actually a lot of fun, right? And I think that you'll be amazed at how much you can accomplish if you trust yourself and you just take your idea and just give it a try, right? And I think more than anything, even if you decide not to do something or maybe it doesn't work out the way, did you learn a lot? Did you recognize that you could do a lot more than maybe you thought you could in the beginning? And did you do things that you didn't know that you were necessarily capable of? And so that for me is really living undaunted and just going out and doing it. And I'd love to see more entrepreneurs out there and people who have these ideas and is able to take on challenges and just go and try.
I love it. I want to close today with a quote from you that kind of ties into what you just said. You say this: if you want to live in a world where things are different, you sometimes have to do things that others consider foolish, but that you think are bold, life-changing, and valuable. You don't have to be super special, rich, earn 10 college degrees, or have front row seats at the game. You just have to be undaunted. Kara's story is super inspiring, don't you think? What I love about her journey is, she was climbing the corporate ladder, but she wasn't fulfilled, right? There was something more for her, and she decided to leave it all behind. And simultaneously, she kind of went on her own wellness journey, right? She realized that she wanted to feel better and live better, and she needed to kind of give up these unhealthy beverages that she was drinking at the time. This wellness part of her journey became her dream big journey. And she really decided, hey, why not share this with other people? And so I think of all of this and I think about her journey and I really see, she decided to go down a new path about something that was personal to her in her own health and wellness journey. And she wanted to share it with others. And she went for it, but she also had challenges along the way. She talks about how she overcame doubts and doubters, right? Not everybody supported her, but she kept going for it. And it's such an inspiring story because no matter where you are in your journey, you can see someone who's gone on the Live Well, Dream Big journey and has really gotten to this certain level of success with it. And it can be very inspiring to see how you can turn your own passions for wellness into really something you're passionate about and helping others, and do it for a career and wake up really to a life you love every day. Our next highlight comes from Michael Dilorio. And I think if you listen in, you'll hear some similar themes in his journey of going for his dreams and overcoming his own fears and really going out on a limb to do what was in his heart, even though he had created all of this success already in a different career, but it wasn't fulfilling him. So let's listen in. Welcome, Michael.
Thank you so much, Suzanne. Nice to meet you all.
I'd love to kind of just start out by hearing from you a little bit more about your backstory and kind of your journey to becoming a wellness coach and being out there today doing all the great work that you're doing in the world. So tell us a little bit about that if you don't mind.
Sure. So I was working in the corporate environment for about 13 years. So right out of school, I got a great job downtown Toronto here in the financial district. And I climbed that corporate ladder and I was having a great time of it, making some pretty good money. But eventually, I'm going to say just over 10 years in, I hit a wall. And that wall, I kind of ignored it for a little while. And then I'm like, let me try another job. Let me try another department. Let me try this. And it just wasn't going away. So I got a little bit apathetic. And so I took the very scary step and I enrolled, which was great. And then I went traveling for 6 months and I did my certification while I was traveling, which was amazing. It required a bit of discipline, of course, but I did it in 6 months. I promised myself I'd get it done within 6 months. And I think I did it just under. I launched my business last year. Since then, I've been working with clients, hosting workshops. I'm a co-host of a podcast that's going really well, which has been very fulfilling and very satisfying.
Wow. First of all, I just love your story so much. It speaks to this part of us that just wants to go for it, right? I think a lot of people are stuck in lives that they don't love, whether it's careers or other things that are going on, but we don't know how to move forward. And at some point you're like, okay, I just got to go for it.
Yeah, it's definitely scary. And the little voice within, the little whisper within that's always kind of there, tugging at your ear, like, hey, do this. That wouldn't have gone away. And I know that to be true because in other areas of my life, that's been the case. And I think that we're always guided by that intuition, by that instinct. And once we listen to it, which doesn't feel good all the time, at least not in my case, on the other side of that, there's rewards, fulfillment, satisfaction, all that good stuff.
What was your moment, Michael? I mean, was there a trigger or sort of light bulb moment for you to finally decide, all right, I'm going for it. I'm betting on myself. I'm doing this.
I would say for me, it was a series of just discomfort, growing and growing and growing. And then a bad day turning into a bad week, turning into a bad month, turning into me being, what am I doing? What am I doing with my life again? It just became very uncomfortable. And I think the walls were squeezing in on me to the point where I had to do something. I remember writing in my journal day after day, I have everything I want. Why am I so unhappy? I'm healthy. I've got friends, great family. I live in a great place. There was just something that was missing. And it really forced me to do the work within. I knew that I had something to do or to contribute. I didn't know what it was. I didn't know how. I didn't know where. I didn't know who. None of that was there. So if I felt stuck, it was these little things that just made me stop and ask myself, why am I doing this? There must be another way.
What did it feel like for you or what did it look like for you when you decided, okay, I'm taking the leap and I'm going for it?
I didn't know for sure that wellness coach certification was exactly it. No one had came to me and said, oh, do this and this will happen. I was like, well, this is, of all the options I have, this one looks to be the best. So it's not always very clear, it's not this aha, light bulb moment, I thought it was going to be. It wasn't like that at all. It was sort of I have to do something and some action is better than being stuck. I think that's what prevents a lot of people from doing it because it feels counterintuitive. It feels like if it feels scary, then I shouldn't be doing it kind of thing. If I thought more of what the opportunities are, then it turns into excitement. Oh my gosh, being my own boss, helping people achieve their goals, helping people like me who, I wish I had someone like me when I was growing up. And then from that mindset, it was very exciting. But from a practical standpoint, I'm a very pragmatic person that all the fears were no, this is a terrible idea. You're giving up the security. It was more so what I'm giving up, not necessarily what I'm gaining. When I think about what I'm gaining, excitement. When I think about what I'm giving up, fear.
So Michael, how did it impact you for other areas of your life once you decided to, I guess, really trust yourself and go for what you wanted, even though you didn't know exactly how it was going to work out?
Liberating. It definitely felt liberating to do it after I did it. And the great thing for me in my experience is that as I did it, the right people sort of showed up and the right books and the right YouTube videos. Just things sort of started coming together. But first I had to take the action. First I had to demonstrate that I was in it to win it. When I joined that Facebook community, I was like, oh my gosh, there's people like me. Like, this is great. I felt like I was Harry Potter going into Hogwarts. Like, this is amazing. I didn't know that people were as passionate about personal development, as passionate about wellness as I was, because I certainly hadn't seen it very much, especially as a man. It's not really common for me. It made me more confident because I bet on myself, and that felt really good. It's like, I did this for me, and it's so rare that we do things for ourselves.
So what happened to you, Michael, in your life as a result of making the change? I mean, you decided to go for it. You left your steady job to leave the world that said, okay, this is how you do it. I mean, what really does happen after that? What does it look like on the other side now for those who are like, okay, I'm thinking about betting on myself?
Yes, there will be fear. Yes, it'll be hard. Yes, there's challenges. It's not always fun and easy. But on the other side of that, personally, I feel way more fulfilled with my life, with what I'm doing. I'm helping people, something I've always wanted to do. I've always wanted to make an impact. So definitely more fulfilling, more life satisfaction in general. In a skill set wise perspective, I have gained so many new skills that I would not have gained if I had just stayed in that particular job I was in. I've learned how to build a website. I learned how to write a blog. I learned how to be an entrepreneur. I learned about content. I learned about marketing. I learned about all the social media things that help to that. I've become so much more empowered because I've taken control over my life. I've taken that ownership and realized that, yeah, like I do have choices. Like I didn't have to continue in that kind of default lifestyle. I chose to do something else. And that is very empowering to know that you have agency and authority over your life. Like I used to wake up and be like, oh, it's Monday. I got to go to work. Ugh. Now I'm like, I get up. I'm like, okay, what am I doing today? Like, is it a podcast recording day? Is it a client day? Is it a content creation day? And each day is something enjoyable, even if it's not like, if it's like an accounting day, not my favorite day, but it's still for me and it's still contributing towards my overall success.
I love what you said, having that agency and authority over your life. No matter what happens from this point on, it's like nobody can take that sense of empowerment away from you. Like no matter what challenges you face on the journey, like that piece is so huge because you have that with you, and what's coming to me is like, maybe the thing that's your greatest fear is actually the greatest gift, right? Because here you are afraid to do something and now it turns out to be something you love to do, right? I think it's so exciting for people to think of the possibilities and to follow the steps that you've shared to take action and to allow yourself to make mistakes on the journey and see what happens. Michael's journey reminds me a little bit of my own because he was stuck in this job that, while it seemed successful on the outside, it just didn't fulfill him. And it was really weighing him down. And in his heart, he just wanted to find something meaningful and something that would really light him up. And when he did, he decided to go for it, right? He had ups and downs along the way, but he stuck with it. And he knew that he was really meant for something more. And I think you're going to enjoy our next highlight coming from Eileen Franco, who has also a similar journey. Again, a different one on the Live Well, Dream Big journey. But hers is all about her wellness journey and how she was in also a job that she didn't love, but it was impacting her health and wellness, right? So much so that she ultimately had to get out of that career because she was facing burnout. So let's listen in and see what happened. Welcome, Eileen.
Well, happy to be here. Thank you for having me. I'm so excited.
I'm really excited you're here. I resonate with your story. In many ways, it's similar to the journey I went on, thinking success was one thing and getting there and being like, wait a second, nobody told me about this.
Exactly.
This isn't exactly what I was hoping or planning for, right? There's that wake up call moment.
Absolutely.
I'd love to kind of just start out by hearing a little bit more from you about that story and kind of your journey to becoming a wellness coach.
Yes, absolutely. Transitioning into wellness coaching for me started really in 2011 after the death of my mom. Her death really was a turning point for me because it made me take a step back and realize what I was missing in my life, that the life that I was living was not the life that I wanted to continue living any longer. I always felt that there was something missing. I always had the dream of making a difference in the world, but I didn't know how. Like, how do I leverage project management skills? What can I really do? it was just the lack of resourcefulness was there at the time. So I ended up in short-term disability with chronic stress, fatigue, insomnia, depression, and anxiety. And at that point, I knew that my corporate career had ended. I don't know why or how. Something inside me just told me, this is it. You're not going back to that. And lo and behold, shortly after I was in short-term disability, like I was on short-term disability on Thursday, that Tuesday, I came across an ad on Facebook for IAWP Holistic Wellness Certification course 4 business days later. And I didn't think twice. I just jumped on it.
What was it like to kind of make that transition to say, okay, I'm not going back to the corporate world, and wow, 4 days later, my purpose has showed up and I'm doing this. Was it scary though, not having that plan B? Was it exciting? Like, what do you remember back to that time? What was it like, just for those who are wondering, okay, what am I actually going to be going through here?
It's a roller coaster of emotions, to be honest, because I experienced at first when I came across the holistic wellness coaching program, I was so excited and I can do this. This is for me. I can finally make a difference in the world. But then, of course, there comes the subconscious cultural mindset kicking in, that inner critic trying to tell you, well, there comes the doubts. Can you really do this? And it becomes scary. The stability, the financial stability that you had, are you willing to let that go? And then the excitement comes in. Now you finally have the opportunity to live your dream, to go out there and serve something bigger than you. No longer working for a corporation and making them happy. You're going to make people happy. You're going to make a difference in their lives. That's what I leverage today. That's my why. The fact that I am able to go out there and live a life of service, helping others, making a difference in the world, impacting their lives. I never thought in my entire life that in a year that I was going to be able to become a holistic wellness coach. I always thought this was going to take years and that this was going to take me an exuberant amount of money. But in 9 months, I was able to become a holistic wellness coach through the IAWP. So the lack of knowledge, of not knowing what's available to you, not knowing what's out there, the resources that you can pull from, I didn't know until I was in the IAWP that the experience, the transitions that I've gone through was something that I can repurpose to help others to not go through that same thing that I went through, and to help them to find relief sooner than I did.
Let's just fast forward a little bit to the present day where you are now. What would you say about life now? You've gone through all these transitions. You kind of talked about that journey and all the things that we could do. What happened as a result of going through these transitions and really going for it? How would you describe life today?
I am no longer the woman I used to be. I used to be a people pleaser. I had fears and doubts that I wasn't going to be able to make it, and what's going to happen now that I no longer have the 6 figures. What's going to happen of me? How am I going to survive? That's no longer a fear of mine, because I am in charge of my own destiny, and I'm in charge of creating my everyday life and how I want to move forward and how I want to show up in the world every day. Walking in that purpose and passion fuels me every day to show up for myself every day without any doubts. I mean, there's going to be bumps in the road. We talked about the little inner critic that's always coming up. That doesn't stop me anymore. Thanks to IAWP, I've been able to find my direction and passion, which I'm forever grateful. And there's not enough words I can say.
You know, Eileen's story is also super inspiring. And I think many of you out there and our listeners can really relate to probably feeling burned out at one point or another. And maybe you're even feeling burned out and overwhelmed with life or your career right now, right? And sometimes what happens is you start to have signs and symptoms that show up in the body, show up with your health. And I always like to think of these as little indicators that, okay, now it's time to kind of course correct, to think about what we need to do next, right? These are little messages we're getting. And that's really part of what happened to Eileen. And Eileen's story is like so many in our holistic community. She first decided she needed to live well, and then it turned into her dream big journey. So I hope you enjoyed these highlights today and that they've given you some inspiration as you get ready to go out and start a new year and hopefully take those first steps or next steps on your own Live Well, Dream Big journey. I look forward to being in conversation again with you very soon. Thank you for joining me for today's episode of Live Well, Dream Big. I hope you enjoyed today's conversation, and I want to invite you to take your next step toward living well and dreaming big by downloading the Live Well, Dream Big lifestyle book. It's the ultimate guide to becoming your best self and living life on your own terms. You can grab your complimentary copy by going to the link in the show notes or heading directly to iawpwellnesscoach.com/guide. That's iawpwellnesscoach.com/guide.